Warm lamplight, Taylor Swift was sitting cross-legged on their bed, looking at her engagement ring and sporting one of Travis's vintage Kansas City Chiefs t-shirts. She was still enthralled with the way the light hit the old Mine Brilliant cut diamond, producing little rainbows on the bedroom walls 6 weeks after the proposal. She held her hand up so the ring caught the light from various angles and remarked, "I still can't believe how perfect this is. The Kindred Lubeck setting, the vintage cut, the way it sits on my finger like it was always meant to be there." Travis grinned when he saw his fiancée examining her ring as if it contained the universe's secrets. He was reading a biography of Vince Lombardi that he had been working on for months. "You know," Taylor added, turning to look directly at him, "you never truly explained to me how you made that decision. You mentioned wanting something special, something that felt like me, but how did the process really work out? Did you find out immediately, or did you have to consider 100 possibilities?" When a conversation was going to go into a realm he wasn't sure he was prepared to explore, Travis sensed a change in his chest, that familiar constriction. Knowing that Taylor's inquisitive mind would eventually want to know every detail of how her engagement ring was made, he had been dreading this inquiry for weeks. "Well," he murmured cautiously as he put his book on the nightstand and closed it. "If it makes sense, I knew I wanted something classic, but not conventional. Something that wouldn't look like every other engagement ring in Hollywood, but would still fit you." With that knowing expression she gets when she realizes there's more to a tale, Taylor added, "That's the diplomatic answer. However, how did it actually feel? You went where? What was the duration? Did you get any assistance? Or did you fly this mission alone?" Over their 2 years together, Taylor had come to identify Travis's uneasy tendency of running his fingers through his hair. Sensing that this was more than a simple shopping story, she put down her phone and focused entirely on him. He said, "You really want to know? Everything?" Taylor answered, "I want to know everything about how you chose the ring I'm going to wear for the rest of my life." Taylor started to question whether she would push too hard after Travis remained silent for so long. However, after inhaling deeply, he started talking in a softer tone than usual. "I went to 4 different jewelry stores before I found Kindred Lubeck," stated the man. "And I encountered the same issue with each one. It didn't feel right. Nothing seemed sufficient." "Enough," Taylor softly reminded me. Travis murmured, "Enough for you," his gaze shifting from her face to his hands. "Is this good enough for Taylor Swift?" was all I could think when I would enter these establishments and saw these amazing rings, beautiful settings, flawless diamonds, and items that cost more than most people's homes. The vulnerability in his voice made Taylor's heart constrict, but she remained silent because she knew there was more. "When the salespeople recognized me, that was the worst part," Travis added. "They'd get all excited and start talking about how they'd helped other celebrities, how they designed rings for this actress or that singer. And I'd stand there thinking about all the other men who'd bought engagement rings for you, wondering if they'd stood in these same stores looking at these same cases." Taylor gasped. She had never thought that Travis may be influenced by her previous relationships when he was making plans for their future. "Travis," she began. He shook his head nevertheless. "I might never be able to go if I don't say everything now, so let me finish." When he eventually turned to face her, Taylor was startled to find tears in his eyes. "I assumed things would be different when I eventually received a Kindred Lubeck. The shop was more intimate, more individualized, and smaller. The jewelry was more than just pricey accessories. It was art. I believed I had the solution, but Taylor sensed a big but was on the horizon." However, he had this expression on his face and said, "Oh, for Taylor Swift," when I told him what I was searching for and that it was for you, the sales consultant, this guy named Marcus. In fact, we have created pieces for a few of her past partnerships. It's seldom easy to create something so remarkable that someone deserves it. It was as if someone had hit Taylor in the gut. "No, Travis." Then he began to talk about how the standard was set fairly high, how you had such exquisite taste, and how you had been given some genuinely amazing things over the years. With every phrase, Travis's voice grew shakier, and I finally lost it. "You broke? What do you mean?" Travis's laughter was devoid of humor. "I mean, I excused myself to use the restroom, and I sat on the floor of a jewelry store lavatory for 20 minutes, having a full-blown panic attack about my suitability for marriage." Taylor's eyes began to well up with tears. It was nearly unbearable to see Travis, who was strong, self-assured, and unflappable, sobbing by himself in a restroom because he thought he wasn't deserving of her love. All of the songs you've written about love and loss kept coming to mind. About all the men who let you down, who made you feel like love was something you had to work for or strive for. Travis went on. And I was afraid that I would just end up as just another name in a song about how short-lived love is. Travis Taylor muttered. He wasn't finished, though. I went into a tailspin as I remembered how you had previously been engaged, how you had given your all to others, and how they had all been ideal for you at the time. And here I was, a mere football player who was fortunate enough to attract your attention, searching for a ring that would somehow demonstrate my uniqueness. Tears were now streaming freely down Taylor's face. Travis, however, appeared absorbed in the recollection and desperate to release everything. With a feeble smile, he remarked, I actually called my mom from that bathroom. Do you have any idea? I was having a breakdown at a jewelry store at the age of 34, so I called my mom. What was it she said? Softly, Taylor inquired. She initially simply listened to me babble about how scared I was, how I wasn't sure if I was making a big mistake, and how perhaps you were better off with someone who had a deeper understanding of your world. Travis stopped and wiped his tears. Then she made a statement that completely altered the situation. Tell me. Travis, she said, you're crying in the bathroom. Michael Kosek, because you love that woman so much that it breaks your heart to think that you're not good enough for her. Do you believe that any of those other men ever loved her so much that they became anxious when it came to picking out her ring? Taylor covered her lips with her palm as she sobbed. Baby, you're not looking for a ring that proves you're worthy of Taylor, she said. You're looking for a ring to express your love for her. And your love for her is already flawless, honey. Celebrate her future instead of attempting to outdo her past. Travis extended his arm to grasp Taylor's ring-wielding hand. I told Marcus to forget all he had said about your past relationships when I returned outside. I informed him that anything created for someone else was not something I wanted to see. Furthermore, I didn't want to know what other people had decided. Something that would make you consider the future we will create together rather than the past you are leaving behind is what I wanted to see. Looking down at her ring through tears, Taylor said, and that's when he showed you this one. To her surprise, Travis responded, actually, no. I detested every one of the 12 possibilities he presented to me. Although they were lovely, they weren't you. I thus met with her designer and gave her a description of you, not Taylor Swift, the pop sensation, but you, the woman who breaks down in tears when watching dog rescue ads, makes awful jokes and gets really thrilled about discovering a new coffee shop. Taylor was grinning even though her tears had intensified. I told them how you get excited when you discuss making songs, how you remember everyone's birthdays, and how you sing to your kitties every morning in various voices. I explained to them how you usually take my hoodies, how you scrunch your nose when you're focused, and how you've never seen a craft project you didn't think you could do. Travis Taylor spoke in an emotionally charged voice. The designer's entire appearance changed at that point. Travis went on, "Oh, you're not searching for a Taylor Swift ring," she added. "You are trying to find a Taylor ring. There is a distinction." She then emerged with this after vanishing into the rear. He pointed to her finger's ring. She claimed that they had been working on a unique item. It is a fantastic cut for the old mind since it has history and character, yet it is set in a contemporary environment because it symbolizes something fresh. From a distance, the band's tiny engravings appear to be musical notes, but they are actually tiny swirls that catch the light. According to her, it was for someone who respected the past without being constrained by it. After moving the ring around her finger and viewing it with fresh eyes, Taylor remained silent for a considerable amount of time. The best part, Travis added quietly, was that I didn't consider whether it was worthy, impressive, or expensive enough when I first saw it. I simply assumed Taylor would adore this. And that felt sufficient for the first time in weeks. Taylor put her palm on Travis's cheek and said, "Travis, do you know why I accepted your proposal so fast?" He gave a headshake. "Even though it's the most exquisite ring I've ever seen, it wasn't the reason. Even though you made our garden seem like something from a fairy tale, it wasn't because of the environment. The way you looked at me when you asked was the reason. How did I gaze at you as though you were requesting that I pick you? Not that you were attempting to persuade me to." Now Taylor's voice was confident and firm. Every other person who had ever asked me to marry them, or even mentioned doing so, treated me like a trophy they were vying for. You gave me the impression that you intended to live your entire life with me. Something that Travis hadn't even aware was still tense in his chest began to loosen. Taylor went on to say that the distinction was that you weren't attempting to establish your value to me. You asked if I also wanted to be deserving of you. Taylor Travis muttered. With firmness, she said, yes. Yes, every day. Because he loves me so much and is afraid of disappointing me. I want to be worthy of a man who has panic attacks in the restrooms of jewelry stores. Because he was brought up to think that asking for assistance is a show of strength rather than weakness. I want to be worthy of someone who calls his mother when he's afraid. She took both of his in her hands as she shifted closer to him on the bed. I want to be deserving of someone who views my past as a journey that brought me to him rather than as a rival. Someone who wishes to assist me in creating a brighter future rather than erasing my past. In the silence of their bedroom, surrounded by the life they had created together, Travis drew her into his arms and held her. Can I tell you something? After some time, Taylor said, always. This ring's beauty extends beyond its appearance. The tale you just told me is what makes it so lovely. It's lovely because it shows a man who is secure enough to acknowledge his fears, clever enough to ask for assistance, and courageous enough to be vulnerable. She stepped back to give him a look. And one day, when our children inquire about this ring, I will explain to them that their father picked it out of love for me and fear of disappointing me, not because he felt he deserved me. And I'll know they know what true love looks like in that way. Travis's eyes began to well up with tears once more. However, these were distinct tears. Tears of relief, thankfulness, and unwavering love for the woman who saw his concerns and deemed them lovely. I love you, was all he said. I also love you, Taylor said. You all, particularly the sections you believe need improvement. The remainder of the night was devoted to their conversation about their future, their intended wedding, their intended family, and the life they would lead together. However, Taylor would occasionally smile when she looked down at her ring. Not only for its beauty, but also for the romantic tale it embodied. Because she now understood that her engagement ring represented more than just Travis's love for her. She saw a representation of his bravery in loving her in spite of his reservations, his mother's insight that true love isn't about perfection, and his readiness to be vulnerable in the search for something genuine. It all comes down to having the courage to attempt. To be honest, she couldn't think of anything more exquisite than that. How do you feel about two people learning to accept each other's flaws at this unvarnished, honest moment? Have you ever been afraid that you aren't good enough for someone you care about? Finding each other isn't often the plot of the most romantic love stories. They are about flawed individuals who decide to have the courage to confide in someone who will still love them, despite their anxieties and inadequacies. Please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment below with your own experiences of love-demanding bravery if this tale resonated with you and served as a reminder that vulnerability can actually be a strength in relationships, because the individuals who love us the most are often the ones who assist us in opening the most priceless presents that occasionally arrive wrapped in our worst anxieties. Be advised that for entertainment purposes, this story blends fictional emotional exaggeration with actual engagement details.